What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Tuesday night. That means another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. Breaking down another week of golf action for you as we move to the Florida swing to close out the month of February. And I guess into the first couple of days of March with the Cognizant Classic, formerly known as the Honda Classic. Was the Honda for a long time, so might slip that name in on accident throughout the show, but same tournament, same course, PGA National the host this week, and we'll break it down here for you. I am Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84, with Mr. Notorious Derek Farnsworth alongside. Noto, how's it going?
Going well. How are you doing?
Good. I read one of your articles for Hoops right after the All-Star break with your breakdown of the giant Costco that you went through. So I am not a Costco guy. I live in the rural Illinois area. No Costco within about an hour of me. So no membership here, though I do have a coworker that lives closer to Chicago that is a frequent fan of the Costco and very complimentary of the hot dog and pizza for cheap or whatever it is. So what is the deal with the giant Costco that you went to last week?
Yes, most Costco's, you just have like you go down the main aisle and then there's rows on one side, and then you do your little U-turn, go down the other side so you get all the Costco. This one has two different U sections. So yeah, it took us like an hour and a half just to walk all the aisles. They had a full thing all dedicated to Red Bull, like a full aisle on both sides with huge packs of different colored Red Bulls. It was pretty wild. A little overwhelming, but I thought you were going to say you read today's Grind Down article, which had some problems building some shelves.
No, I did not. I'm not throwing you under the bus at all. No, nothing. I thought of the Costco thing and you know. So are you is it like a whole ordeal when you go? Is a meal required?
Ooh, I mean, it should have been. You know, we were pretty parched there at the end. But yeah, to answer Garth's question, yeah, all Costco's are big, but this one is like a business center, so it's
double big,
twice as big as a normal Costco.
That would definitely overwhelm me. So, well, that's another story for another day, I guess. But golf there's not much to recap last week. If you pegged, an exacta of the top three guys last week, you can retire and buy your own island somewhere with Brian Campbell winning in a playoff. I was kind of rooting for Aaron Rye to get there on Sunday. For some of my squads, but so some guys were lurking there. Jaeger, Ben Griffin, Rye were kind of the big names near the top, but Brian Campbell gets it done and pretty impressive finish there into a playoff with maybe three guys there at the top that nobody would have expected going into the week. So just one of those weeks on the PGA Tour that relatively weak field. You kind of never know what you're going to get, and it's probably the first time in a while that somebody's won a tournament that I really wasn't even that familiar with heading into the week. And you could pretty much say that about Pot Eater and Celinda also inside the top three there. So really, really strange week last week.
Yeah, absolutely wild, especially since, we haven't heard from this guy in a long time, at least not on the PGA Tour. But he's one of the shorter hitters like in the field. Pot Guider was at least 100 yards ahead of him on a couple holes. I think I saw that Campbell had at least 4 approaches of at least 220 yards on par 4s on Sunday. Just absolutely wild. And then he gets the break off the trees in the playoff. Pot Guider, you can blame his caddy all you want. He did, hit some bad shots there. But man, it's just wild on the PGA Tour. You never really know week to week what's going to happen. I was rooting for Aaron Wright too. Had an outright on him. Had an outright on Steven Jaeger. Both of them kind of fell apart there on Sunday. But it's one of those courses where bombers typically play well, but Campbell and Griffin both in the top 5 was a little surprising.
Yeah, and Griffin's just kind of got the all-around game now to where it seems like, he can contend pretty much any given week. Griffin seems to be able to navigate the course, and even though he's not the longest guy, pretty impressive the run he's been able to put up over the last 6 months or so. Wasn't really a ton of DFS sweats for me last week. I did have some decent showdown lineups on Saturday, played some, but the full week teams were a little bit of a bust last week. And it happens. You move on, dust yourself off, and move on to the next week. Didn't play super heavy volume myself last week, just with the nature of that tournament, and didn't love the field and had a lot going on. So probably thankful that I played a little bit lower volume than usual, and we'll get back to it this week. Although this week's field not super strong either. So anything else for takeaways other than you never know what's going to happen, and that was pretty much a perfect example.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad week for me too. My 2 core plays of the week were Bo Hostler and Carson Young, who both missed the cut. I think Carson Young was like 5 over after 5. This is one of those weeks where, I know you like this GIF. You close the laptop, take it out, throw it in the dumpster, and bring it back out this week.
Yeah, you've had enough good weeks to start the year that you're not going to let one lesser week get you down. So we'll get back on the horse this week and go to the Florida Swing at PGA National for the Cognizant Classic. Course is the same venue that's been hosting for a while, though last year they did convert it from a par 70 to a par 71. The 10th hole, which used to be like a 510-yard par 4, is now like a 550-yard par 5. So par is 71 instead of 70, which made the scoring a little better last year. But just an example that par is just a number. So 17 under last year, again, would have been 13 under the old course rotation there. I believe 14 under the year before that, but a lot of years we've seen the winning score in single digits under par here. So not the easiest course generally, just kind of depends on the wind. What are we looking at this week?
Yeah, like you mentioned, they did make the course a little bit easier last year, changing one of the par 4s to par 5s. And I think they made it a little bit easier in terms of like the rough too, because a lot of the golfers were complaining that it was this week and then Bay Hill and then the Players, and they just couldn't handle 3 tough weeks in a row, which is wild because like nobody plays this event anyway. But yeah, this course is really exposed to the wind. So if there is any wind this week, you definitely want to monitor it. It doesn't look like there's going to be much until Sunday. But yeah, the main defense of the course is going to be the water hazards. It's been played on 15 of the 18 holes. I think there are 25 water hazards total on the course, and you're going to see a ton of penalty strokes. So you want guys that can just avoid bogeys. I know it sounds simple, but I mean, if you can keep the ball out of the water,
lots of double bogeys here.
You're going to be pretty good shape. The greens are actually pretty big, 7,000 square feet. The fairway is actually kind of wide, but this is a less than driver course, at least on several holes. The average driving distance last year was only 280 yards, which is well below tour average. Tour average is like 295. But if you look at Data Golf's course fit tool, it actually benefits distance over accuracy. So maybe it's just because guys are hitting long irons instead of woods off the tee. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I think it's just a course where you want to lean on guys that don't make mistakes, that are good in Florida, putt well on Bermuda, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And with it being a par 71 instead of a par 72, I don't mind looking at par 4 scoring, scrambling a little bit if it gets difficult. Right now, I think we kind of got to keep an eye on Friday. Looks like Friday there might be some wind and a potential wave advantage. A little bit early to time that out for sure, but we'll be keeping an eye on the weather forecast when Kevin Roth drops that, probably early tomorrow or late tonight, to see if there's a potential edge to be had on Friday. But that looks to be the windiest day. So we'll keep a close eye on that as lineup block gets closer. And other than that, we can probably dig into it. Anything else housekeeping wise?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Pricing, not a lot at the top this week. I mean, Noto just mentioned nobody plays this event, and I'm not sure why. I mean, it's not like we just had a major last week. It's the first event in Florida, so you'd think a lot of guys would want to get a look before the Players comes rolling around. I don't know. It just always surprises me that this tournament doesn't have a stronger field. I guess maybe the prize money has something to do with it. It's not an elevated event, no $20 million purse, what have you. But still, the field tends to be a little bit weaker than I would expect. And with that, we only have 2 golfers above 10K. I can't remember the last. So usually there's 3 or 4. But only 2 above 10K this week with Russell Henley and Shane Lowry, and both have pretty sparkling course history here. Henley a couple top 10s in the early 2020s. and Lowry the last 3 years, 4th, 5th, and 2nd, and he's made the cut all 7 times he has played here. So certainly deserving to be above 10K, but got quite a few guys in the 9s as well. But are you looking to start with one of Henley or Lowry at the top?
Yeah, I'd probably start with Henley in a lot of my builds, maybe my main lineup. He won here in 2014. Great course fit, good with the long irons. He's number 1 in my expected strokes gained approach metric. Great around the green, good Bermuda putter. I don't know. He's just consistent. I think he's missed 1 cut since the start of 2024 and got a bunch of top 5s during that stretch. So I do like Henley, but no issue with Lowry. Hasn't been playing a ton, but he had a 2nd place finish recently. He's got 3 straight top 5s here. Probably should have won here in 2023. This is when that big storm hit right when he was teeing off 18, and he was the last group, so he was really the only group that got hit by the storm. He wasn't happy about that, but he came back, finished 5th the next year, 4th last year. So yeah, I don't have any issue with either of them. It's kind of one of those weeks where you pick your favorite because nobody's better than 20 to 1 in the betting market. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, about the 2nd week in a row, we haven't really had a clear guy at the top. I think Akshay was 15 to 1 or thereabouts last week, but I don't think there was anybody else below 20 to 1 last week either. So crazy that is the case for the 2nd week in a row, but that does tend to happen when you get a lot of the top guys not playing in a given week. So I will side with Lowry, but again, it's close. I don't mind either guy. Henley's probably your cash game choice. Right now we've got Henley at 29% ownership and Lowry at 22. So I'll give a slight edge to Lowry and GPPs, but I don't have a fault with either of them myself. You mentioned Lowry we haven't seen him a lot lately, and he tends to not play in the States a lot during the late fall and winter months, but this is kind of the spot where he usually starts to ramp it up, and obviously it's worked for him with his results here the last 3 years. So I like both of those guys this week, and they don't break the bank. It's not like a 12K plus Scheffler salary tag, so don't mind starting with either of them. And then we get down into the 9K range where we've got quite a few options here, pretty much one guy at every $100 level. Berger and Im are in the upper portion, and then 95 to 9K, you have one guy at each of those 5 price points: Pendrith, Straka, Denny McCarthy, Minwoo Lee, and Keith Mitchell, and then Benny On right at 9K. So thoughts on this range? I mean, you compare one of them with the 10K guys, right? If you start Lowry and Berger, you still have 7,400 for your other 4 spots on average, which is doable. So it's not like you can, it's not like you have to eschew this range, even if you're playing one of the top 2 guys. What do you like in the 9s?
Yeah, I want to get your take on Daniel Berger. He's one of those guys that typically we want to play him on these short Florida courses. I want to say he's a Florida State guy. And if you zoom out, like over the last year, you don't want to play him because his stats aren't great. But if you zoom in just on the last, 4 months, 12th at Genesis, 2nd at Waste Management, 2nd at RSM, 21st at the Amex. He's obviously, got a great caliber golfer long term. So I don't know what to do with them. He feels overpriced. He's not going to project well just because a lot of projection stuff is long term. So I wanted to get your take on Berger before anyone else.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, of course, I've always kind of been a fan, but it seemed like he wasn't fully recovered he's had various injuries the last couple of years. And if you look 36 rounds, he's 3rd in this field off the tee. He's 9th around the green. So if you like scrambling this week, the approach play has been a little bit more hit or miss, but he's got a couple of 4th place finishes here. He used to be the guy that we would always want to target. If you go back 3-4 years before his injury, when he was first making a name for himself, like this was the time of year where he always wanted to play Berger, like you mentioned, on these shorter Florida courses. I like the around the green trends. I think he's shown some upside, weaker field. So I do agree. I think he looks somewhat overpriced on the surface, but that's also going to keep ownership down. I mean, right now we've got him as basically the lowest owned guy between 9.2K and 10K. So I like Berger this week.
Yeah, I originally just wanted to fade him, but I think I might end up changing my tune and playing some of him. Sung Jae, I always like him on the short Bermuda courses. He hasn't been great over the last few starts, but prior to that, he was in really good form. Won here in 2021. Straka's a previous winner here too. Mentioned the year that Shane Lowry lost. That was 2 Sepp Straka. And Straka's been, I think he's won 3 times in the last 3 years now. So plenty of upside for tournaments. Not sure what to do with the bottom of the range. I mean, Denny McCarthy, he just isn't a great ball striker. So that worries me when there's a lot of water in play. And then Minwoo Lee, for whatever reason, plays great in Florida. You wouldn't think so because he's really wild off the tee. But he almost won the Players that 1 year, almost won this event last year. I think he's been pretty good at API as well. So I'll probably play some Minwoo Lee in tournaments. And then, yeah, your boy Keith Mitchell. He's won here before, back-to-back top 10s here. Finally playing a little bit better. He's played 4 times this year, all top 35. So I'll play some Keith Mitchell too.
I probably will also, which is the death curse, because I haven't gotten him right very much. Although I did get him right a few weeks ago, so we're back on good terms. But Berger is definitely my favorite in that range. Don't mind playing some Straka as well, especially if people kind of shy away from him a little bit after the miscut at the Genesis. But for me in this range, I won't have a ton of exposure to a lot of guys. Berger, I'll be overweight on for sure. Mitchell probably overweight on. Straka probably overweight on. The rest of them can probably leave most of them and head into the 8Ks, which I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I like Cam Young this week, and I'm not sure what started this, but hey, it's just it's some of it's a gut. Cam Young, 4th year last year, 16th in 2022. Was watching him on the TGL the other day, 15th around the green in this field over the last 36 rounds. Noto asked a couple weeks ago if he's ever going to be good again. So I think that's just a sign. I'm taking it as a sign that Cam Young, for whatever reason, he's 8,800. He switched to Florida, maybe gets him going. He was 12th in Phoenix a few weeks ago. This is probably just stupid, but so you can ignore me if you just think I'm crazy. But it's a Cam Young week for me. We've got him at 7%, so it doesn't take much to be overweight 7%. So Cam Young at 8,800, weak field. I'm certainly going to play him over like Spieth in this range. I don't know. It's probably just me blabbering, but at least I'm on record. If Cameron Young does well this week, I've got the clip. If he does poorly, we'll just bury it and pretend I never said it. So there you go. There's my call for this week.
Okay, so I'll give you the bad, and then I'll give you the good. So
the bad, the good is just those few things I mentioned. The bad is everything else.
Last 7 events on approach: -2.7, -2, -4, -1, -5, -7, -3. I don't know what's happening with the irons, but the good news is
hopefully that's the bad.
That's bad. The good news, yeah, less than 10% ownership. He's a course history guy, and so he tends to play the same courses well each year. Back-to-back top 20s here. It's basically the same exact case that I made for Minwoo. So if I'm playing Minwoo, I can't knock on you for playing Cam Young because neither one is like great statistically.
Yeah, and the approach play has been pretty bad for both of them lately.
Yeah.
It's probably dumb. So, but I'm playing him. I gotta stick with the guys that I'm playing. And after getting this conviction this afternoon when I was looking into it, and then putting him in my article, and then saying it here, like I can't go back now. I'm pot committed. To use a poker term, to where I just hope he withdraws maybe at this point, so I don't have to stick with it. But all right, what do the smart people like in the 8s?
All right, so I mean Ben Griffin, 8,500. He's actually 4th in my model this week, which doesn't make me feel great, but loves these shorter courses. He gained 9 strokes tee to green last week in Mexico on a Bombers course. We've seen him contend at the Players. He was 221 here in 2024, so I do like Ben Griffin quite a bit. Everyone else doesn't really project well. I mean, from 8K to 8,900, there's no good value plays other than.
That's why I like Cam Young. So yeah, I might as well
Griffin.
just take a shot on him.
Yeah, he's got the upside for sure. Yeah, I was tempted to play Spieth early in the week, but then I heard quotes that his wrist was bugging him after 3 weeks of playing, even though he took like 6 months off. So can't go to Spieth. I've seen people mention Grazerman. Don't hate it. There's just not a lot here. I think Kitayama is probably an interesting tournament play. He was 10K last week, was pretty popular. Ended up missing the cut, but yeah, he was third here in 2023. He also won the API in Florida a couple years ago. I think it was a signature event too when he won. So he might be a Florida guy. And then Novak at the very bottom is certainly in play at 8,000.
Yeah, Novak, another guy that's a little bit shorter off the tee. So in this event, not necessarily going to kill him to not have that distance. Eckroat, his form has been poor, and he won here last year. So, the defending champ narrative people tend to shy away from, and the last two events he's missed the cut. So I think I'm out there. It's weird because the metrics on driving here are so different depending on who you ask or how you think guys are going to approach the course. We do have the extra par 5 now, but Patrick Rogers is always the guy I play. More on the driver heavy courses. Noto and I kind of take the same approach there with him, but he has played well the last couple of events. I don't hate him, but otherwise I tend to agree this range seems a little bit weak. I'll play Cam Young. I'll definitely keep Griffin in my player pool. Probably end up keeping Rogers and or Kitayama in my player pool as well. That's probably about it for the 8Ks for me. Anything else in there, or otherwise you can start to move down to some of your favorite options in the upper sevens.
I did hear Austin Eckroat's going back to the putter where he won, or that he used when he won here last year. I don't know why he went away from it, but if that has any meaning to you, you could play him at 8,100. I probably won't have a lot. In the sevens, I like a lot of golfers. Lucas Glover, probably my favorite. So he's been awesome with the putter lately. I think he's gained in 7 of his last 9, and he's gained at least 3 strokes putting in 4 of those events. So if he has a spike week with the putter, we know the irons are going to be good. He's a pretty good driver of the ball too. He's a decent scrambler. He's made 3 straight cuts here, all top 35s. So he's probably my favorite. I like Billy Horschel anytime we get him in Florida. I like Brian Harmon a little bit, finally showing some life. He plays well on these short Bermuda courses. Bazootin out at 7,500 is interesting. And then Johnny Vegas. So there are like a lot of good bombers that play well here. Minwoo, Cam Young, Keith Mitchell.
That's Brooks, why it's weird to me.
Here. Yeah. And maybe that's what's going into the Data Golf's course fit tool is why, distance is more important than accuracy. And Vegas is another guy that's played well here. That's a bomber. So, Woodland's played well here too in the past. I'm not going to play him, but another bomber that's played well here.
And I like him. I'm kind of a Woodland guy, and I played Woodland a couple weeks ago at the Genesis, and he missed the cut woefully, which is going to keep people away from him this week, but otherwise had 3 straight top 25s. So I'm putting him in. I am putting a few lineups together with that. Maybe bomber guys that have had success here in the past. So Woodland fits that mold. Cam Young fits that mold. Minwoo fits that mold. I mean, you can maybe play 2 or 3 of those guys together in a lineup. And I think it's really, really interesting. But a couple of the guys right around, and I agree with a lot of those other guys you mentioned, Harmon, Glover, but right at, I guess they're at 7,400. But when I put my mixed condition Betsperts stuff together this week, and I know I've been on him for a while, so it's but Harry Hall was 4th in this whole field, and Harry Hall is $7,400. The disrespect for this guy who's made like 9 out of 10 cuts. One of them was in Phoenix, but just 9 out of 10 made cuts. $7,400. Had one of the better rounds on Saturday last week. Was kind of in the mix there, right at the top 10. Faded a bit on Sunday. I mean, if he would have played well on Sunday and finished like T5, he'd be 8,500 here. Instead, 7,400. Obviously, I love Harry Hall. Hostler is another guy that, Noto was mentioning last week. I think people are going to be scared to go back to, but Lee Hodges is another guy I really like at 7,400. So this range, like I mentioned, so if you start with Lowry and Berger or something similar, you have 7,400 per golfer to spend, and you can just go get 4 guys that are right in this range that we're talking about right now. I like them just as much as the guys that are 8,000 or 8,200. So Hodges, Hall, Hostler, played the H boys there, and you get some pretty good value with those guys. Moeller as well at 7,300, I think is playable. Eric Cole's down there, and he's faded a bit, but If you're not on the driver narrative this week, then Eric Cole's there at 7,200 as well. So what else you liking in the sevens?
Yeah, I do like Derek Cole. Nearly won here in 2024. Went into a playoff with Chris Kirk, who I also like this week. He hasn't been in very good form, but man, he's just shows up at Florida. He's got a good track record at the Players. Always plays this event well too. So I'll play some Chris Kirk. Nikolai Højgaard's interesting. Really good iron player. Played well last week. Ended up finishing top 10 in Mexico. The Harry Hall thing's interesting. I was just looking at his stats. He's outside of the top 100 in this field and off the tee, outside of the top like 60 in approach, and then he's like second in birdie or better percentage. The dude is just elite.
Short game has been spectacular.
It's like old school speed revived.
Old school speed, and that's weird because I've been on Harry Hall since the last August, right? And it's worked out pretty much every time. But I've always been anti-Spieth. So now we've basically got the same guy, and we've got one guy that I never played with Spieth and one guy that I'm playing every week, which probably just speaks to personal bias, but whatever. I'm committed to the bit at this point. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's because he's a lot cheaper and he's treated you well. There's
very true.
There's a difference there. Do you want to know who's first in this field in bogey avoidance over the last 12 months? The name that we've mentioned many times on this show.
It's certainly not Doug Gim.
Kevin Roy.
Okay.
He hasn't played a ton of events, but kind of interesting. Played well last week.
Man, the way you framed that, I was sure it was Doug Gim, but I'm like, he hasn't been playing that well.
Yeah, Gim is 8th over the last 12 months, so that was a good guess.
I wouldn't have guessed that either.
And yeah, this is the time where you play Doug Gim. Remember, I used to say I only play him with the Players and fade him every other week. So similar-ish course, I guess, with all the water hazards. Don't really love anyone in the very lower part of the sevens. Do you?
Yeah, not really. A lot of those guys, like at 73, 7,400, I think are the plays. CT Pan is another guy who's around the green game, has been pretty good lately. So I'm just in the interest of having some guys in my player pool down here. I'll probably play some of him. You can make a case for Celinda after he played well last week. Joe Highsmith, maybe. He's actually coming out pretty good in that model that I put together. Not nearly as sophisticated as Noto's, but Highsmith at 7K.
I like that. I don't think Sam Ryder's ever missed a cut here. That does anything for you. Good iron player. Terrible off the tee.
I forgot to mention this earlier in the show, but if I don't know, it's still a pretty weak field. I thought there was a stronger field this week, but let's join up a snake draft and then we'll see if it fills and we can talk about the 6Ks. But there is a $5 snake draft on DraftKings that is 1 out of 6. So I will be number 2 out of 6, and Noto can be number 3 out of 6. And then maybe if you want to drop that link in the chat, we can see if we can fill one tonight. We'll at least go for a few minutes talking about what's left here, though there certainly isn't much in the 6s.
4. J3 wants us to give a shout out to Dean. Yep, hard worker. We love him.
The Dean machine.
We're going to get him on a golf show one week. Just let him go.
Just let him go. We'll have to budget an extra 30 minutes for some storytelling. All right, we need a couple to fill that. Let's talk 6Ks here where there's really not much. Meissner at 6,900. Adam Svensson sometime. I mean, the form just hasn't been great, but you're not going to be getting a major champion down here. Mark Hubbard's made the cut the last 5 years at this event, if that does anything for you. But Model got any surprises in the 6Ks?
Let me post this in Discord real quick. Mark Hubbard was a guy that kind of projected well for me.
Made the cut the last 5 years here, which he tends to do.
That?
What's that?
Did you just say that?
I did, but that's okay.
Okay.
You were you were getting the link out there, so I'm not
I was
gonna
like, if you had that ready, you probably just.
I had just mentioned it, but that's all right. I was just scrolling through looking for some diamonds in the rough, but only need one more person to join up in there. So
Brendan Todd, min salary on a non-driver heavy course. Probably not. Mac Meisner, I saw a couple people in the survey talk about him.
we got Luke Donald in the field this week.
He sat
Sneds.
Sune, top 10 last week. Yeah, Luke Donald. I mean, he's the Valspar guy, right? That's his.
I think so.
He was like second every single year.
Danny Willett in the field. Make sure I check what year. This is Mateo Manacero. Check the year out here before we. I mean, I'm used to seeing Charlie Hoffman, but there's a few names that haven't seen as much.
Patrick Fishburne missed the cut last week. Wasn't he like top 10 after his first round?
I don't recall, but let's see. I'm pulling up the leaderboard here. 65-77. That's a tough week.
Jeez. I remember seeing him up there and be like, man, I should have had more exposure to him. I didn't realize.
Pull the Keegan.
Yeah.
Pull the Keegan.
Never go full Keegan.
We're stuck on 5 out of 6. If somebody wants to hop in this snake draft here, we threw the link in the Discord and did you throw it in the YouTube chat too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I did.
Sometimes my mic gets crazy when I open up the YouTube chat, so I didn't want to risk that tonight.
Trying to see if there's anybody else with good course history we could look at, but not really.
No, there's nothing else in the.
Oh, Ricky, our boy Ricky.
Our boy, the Ricky hasn't been a thing for a long time now. When's the last time you've regretted not playing him?
He had was it 2 years ago when he kind of had the.
Yeah, like a 2-event spurge.
He won the Rocky Mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, even in some of the,
he's on a TGL squad, right?
Well, Ricky's been not playing well in that either. All right, we're filled up.
Nice. We were just about to call it quits.
Yep. I got the first pick in a week that Scheffler's not playing. That's not fair. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. We get going in a minute, 40 seconds. Far too many tabs open. We'll hope that doesn't cause a problem.
This is not the best week for the first pick, you know.
It is not.
We always get it when Scheffler's not playing.
That's right. The local girls high school basketball team. So my son's a freshman now, but so we're keeping a close eye on the high school sports. This track season starts in a couple weeks, but the girls high school team was really good this year. They are 30-5, I believe, and they won the regional, which is the first round of the high school playoffs in Illinois. So they're down to like 32 teams now. So they won the regional playoff to advance to the round of 32, and they cut the nets down and everything.
Oh,
that's probably getting a little ahead of ourselves here, cutting the nets down for reaching the round of 32. But
that's cool though. Yeah, it's funny. My new brother-in-law coaches a basketball team. They're in state right now, and my cousin plays for a 3A basketball team. They're playing each other tonight at 9:00, so we're gonna go drive down and watch.
So they're starting our team is starting the next round of the playoffs tonight, and they're ahead 37-21 at halftime. So.
Oh, you get some live scoring updates?
It's my wife's upstairs streaming it. So it's funny. One year, when COVID hit, like I didn't know what to get my wife for her birthday, and they did like spring football that year because of COVID in 2020. So I got her the subscription to the high school sports network that streams all the high school sporting events. I mean, it's pretty involved. They've got like broadcasters that specifically do our local high school events and stuff. I mean, they do it up pretty good, even though we're a small town and sports is pretty well funded. So, yeah, so she's upstairs streaming it and somebody's live tweeting the score. So
nice. Yeah, there was almost a fight that broke out yesterday at the game.
Get serious.
I forgot about the high school tribalism.
Those high school sports get serious.
It's the parents, not the kids, too. It's the worst part.
Definitely the parents. Like, you could not pay me enough to be a youth sports coach.
Yeah.
No. And it's usually just volunteering a lot of that stuff.
Cam Young in the first round.
And it wasn't me. I picked first. That would have been a little extreme.
Man, Daniel Berger falling to me. Gotta take it.
So is your area, you mentioned going to the game later, like how far along the season are they?
I believe the winner gets in the final four.
Oh, okay. So they're down to like 8.
Yeah.
It's pretty serious.
But they're both smaller schools and they're not in the same region. So it's just kind of funny that they both won yesterday. And we went to both the games yesterday.
I believe our school plays the local rival school. If they both win, it'd be 2 schools that are about 15 miles apart playing in the round of 16s.
Nice.
2 schools that are 15 miles apart playing in the round of 16, but playing an hour away from here because they play them in a neutral site.
Yeah. All right. How low does Spieth go?
Well, I don't know. We've played this game before and he fell lower than I expected, but this field's kind of weak. I'm going to say 22. 22 is my guess. We'll see.
All right, here's an over-under. How many times is Scheffler going to win this year?
How many times did he win last year?
It's like 8 or 9 or...
That's crazy. I don't know. Hasn't been quite as sharp since coming back. I set the over-under at 4.5.
Yeah, he won 9 events last year.
4.5? Is 4.5 too low? I mean, he's at 0 right now.
Yeah, I was going to set it at 3.5. So
okay. Well,
9's wild.
9 is wild.
Because he probably played like, what, 20?
Yeah, maybe a few more if you include the playoffs and stuff. Three and a half is probably more fair. I just didn't want to be seen as disrespectful. Guess it depends on if any of the other guys at the top get, super hot.
Yeah.
Rory has a good year or something. All right. Spieth's got to go right here. Oh, man, I overestimated it. Oh, it's one pick too early.
Okay.
All right, so Joker D Pro, you just wasted a pick because I wasn't going to pick Spieth. And now I might pick somebody you would have taken instead. You could have gotten Spieth anyway. So see, if you wanted Ben Griffin or Gary Woodland, you chose poorly. Certainly wasn't going to take him from you. Well, that's disappointing. I missed it by one pick. Pretty good, though.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, Benny On's been real bad. His irons are just...
So he used to be no putting. He was good at everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's... Let's see. I still got 36 rounds up. 120th in this field and approach. Last 36 rounds. That's insane. Why is he still 9K?
It's weird how when you work hard at something, another part of your game just goes away. I think he's got good course history, I think. But
21, miscut 4. It's okay, I guess. These lineups don't look as bad as I expected. I mean, I suppose this field is like okay in the middle, but it's just kind of not much at the top.
Right. Yeah, everyone that's like not in the signature event next week. Is it a signature event? It's got to be.
I can't keep track. Schedule. I'm gonna find out though. Look at the purse. 20 million. That's the winner. So yep, 20 million total purse, not the winners. But yes, Arnold Palmer next week is a signature event, and then the Players the week after. So just 2 weeks away.
Does it say if we have a cut next week?
There's only 2 of them that do, and I can't remember if that's the other one. After I make my picks here, I'll look. I'll go with Moeller and Cole. All right, so calculating. Yes, we do. This is the other one with the cut.
Sweet.
Last year at this event, at next week's event. Now we're not talking about this week, just to clarify. Next week's event, only 11 guys got cut, and they included, I remember this now, Tommy Fleetwood, Colin Morikawa, Adam Scott, Matt Fitzpatrick, Nikolai Højgaard, and Justin Rose. That's like 8 of the 11 guys that got cut. And I remember it was at 6-6 percentage. It was only like 10%, even though like 61 guys made the cut and only 11 guys missed. But see, that's why even the small cut is still better than no cut. It's just different element. All right, we're done. That went by pretty quickly. Lowry, Mitchell, Griffin, Hodges, Woodland, Moeller, and Cole for me. Berger, Kitayama, Glover, Vegas, Hostler, and Ryder for Noto. Pretty much in line with a lot of the guys that we talked about here during the show. So with that, we will we'll call it a week. We'll come back next week, and we'll talk Arnold Palmer Invitational for you. 2 fun weeks in a row coming up. So make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, get a notification whenever we go live. And appreciate you checking us out. As always, thanks to Steve for producing behind the scenes. Thanks to Noto for joining me. I am Justin. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Enjoy the start of March. And we'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place. Bye, everybody.